Hello guys and gals, this is Zack Psioda with HVAC Shop Talk, and I wanted to give you a little bit of a quick tech tip here because I was reading some comments on a video I was watching the other day, and the comments were talking about leak testing and how you can see a leak in a vacuum. And I go back to a video I did several months ago about, vacuums and the fact that they aren't really leak tests. So you can't really forego the leak test whether or not you have nitrogen, or whatever the reason is you decide not to do a nitrogen leak test. A vacuum isn't a good indicator of a real refrigerant leak. And I hate the way that sounds, and let me clarify what I'm saying. Of course, if you have a leak, it'll show up on the vacuum, theoretically, unless it's very small. The experiment we did a few months ago was to see if we could trick the BlueVac app into thinking there was no leak in a system, even though there was a leak. And I did prove this through a series of tests where I had a coil, an evaporator coil with a very small leak, and I pulled a vacuum on it with, I forget what pump I used. It was either the filled piece 8 CFM or the Navac 2 CFM with the BlueVac hoses, or the True Blue hoses, should I say, BlueVac. So I pulled the vacuum with these hoses on this coil that we confirmed was leaking with a water bath. And for those of you who are new to the trade, I would be happy to clarify anything that I'm saying here in the comments if you have any questions. What I'm saying is I put this evaporator coil, which was an A coil, into a water bath. See, I sealed up the coil, I brazed it all shut, but I put nitrogen pressure on the inside. So there's a service port on the coil, but everything is closed down. I put a cap on the service port. I submerged the coil in water so you can see the bubbles trickling off the coil very slowly, indicating there is a leak. So these bubbles continued, and I confirmed that the pressure was falling because I left a small pressure gauge on the coil for a few weeks, actually. And you will have a little bit of falling pressure as it cooled because it became fall. But even within that, 10 or 20 degrees maximum, you're not going to have a significant change in nitrogen pressure due to temperature alone. Nitrogen will change pressure with temperature, but it's just really small. If you take refrigerant, for example, and you change the temperature of it, you know how big the difference in the PSI would be. But with nitrogen, it's not quite as much. You don't see that big change like that. That's why it's so important to have no refrigerant in the system when you're pressure testing, because if it warms or cools, it could significantly skew the pressure test. But this coil had been proven a leaker. So we took this coil, we put it in the vacuum, we used the BlueVac app, we put it into a leak test mode, and it passed the leak test significantly. I mean, it wasn't close. We actually did a few different leak tests on this coil, and they all passed. No leak. But we confirmed there was a leak in the bath. So even though you have a vacuum, you really shouldn't use it for leak testing. You need to go through that extra step of nitrogen testing, just so you have that extra layer of testing that can help weed out some of the issues you might have. And the main thing, I don't even want to say the main thing about this is nitrogen testing is going to show you every leak out there. It's only to tell you that vacuum testing is not leak testing. I think you can fool a vacuum test, and we proved that in the past. Now, I'm not saying you can't fool a nitrogen test, but having that extra layer of testing is just going to make you more prepared. Nitrogen in the system, in triple evacuations, you use nitrogen to break the vacuum. You're already going to have nitrogen in the system. I think it's going to assist your vacuum anyway, so there's a couple different reasons to use this stuff. Don't ever skip it. Even if you have a situation where you'd have to go get nitrogen, I really think you ought to be going to get nitrogen instead of just foregoing the test altogether. It may bite you in the butt in the future, especially if you're installing a new system and you have a boo-boo on one of your lines. It's a good idea to go ahead and get that extra test done, no matter what it takes. It's just one of those things that is necessary to the job, one of those special touches, just like flowing nitrogen when you're brazing and stuff like that. It's the things that separate someone who's just throwing something in from someone who has quality in mind when they're installing something. And I hope this helps somebody out there. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments down below. Please like the video if you don't mind as well, if you enjoyed it. You can also dislike it if you didn't enjoy it. But why? I'm Zack Psioda from HVAC Shop Talk, and I'll see you on the next one.